Hey, I want to talk on a message that's close to my heart today because it scares me so much because I see it in the world and I see people kind of falling to it. I've said before that my father taught underneath Maharishi, and this whole concept of light and dark and balance in the world, neutrality, pacifism, tolerance at all times, regardless of cost. There's some other, and there's a great deal of religions and other things that teach this. I lived with this for about 20 years, and I've really realized some things concerning it. This concept of neutrality, for one, I don't believe light and dark are in balance in this world at all. I see no evidence of it. 40 years alive, this place is temporary. From a scientific standpoint to everything else, I mean, the magnetic field's failing, the universe will eventually have a cold death if God doesn't intercede. I mean, just everything, it had a very clear beginning, it has a very clear end. There are some other things about balance and neutrality, and I'm all for peace and keeping balance in some of my life, but not at the cost of letting darkness win. So here's the thing. Light doesn't need darkness to exist. Good is good, light is light, regardless. All right? In heaven, there's nothing but light. Doesn't need to be darkness. In the new world that God will create, nothing but light. You don't need people doing darkness and that in order for the good to be good. You know, when a child is born, it's a good thing. You know, you don't need darkness. Darkness comes in and tries to suggest other things and place things on it. But darkness is just the absence darkness is just the absence of light. But what scares me about neutrality is this. It is one of the most hateful things a human being can do to another human being, even if you're preaching positivity, and I'm going to explain why. When the angels fell, there was actually a group of fallen that chose neutrality. They didn't want any part in the argument. They wanted things to continue as they were, regardless of the fight. But the second the fight started, things were no longer as they were. And you can want that balance in that center all you want. By choosing not to fight against the darkness and the evil, they sided with it. And essentially, you know, brother, I know you'll probably watch this, but you said something that's absolutely horrifying. You really got to look at your words. And I mean, I respect your belief system. That's fine, but you really got to look at the words. You sat there and you opted. I'd gladly, instead of fight and being a protector, I'd gladly sit back and watch the whole world march itself to hell. And that's a terrifying concept. If I see a bunch of crying children and abused individuals and other such things, I will not just step away from the world. You know, Jesus very clearly said, you know, dear Father, do not remove them from the world, but just protect them while they're in it. Christians are not supposed, that's isolationism. And I don't subscribe to it. I find no peace in it. Because if you can find peace by stepping away from the world and being neutral and this and that, why people are being raped and murdered and there's corruption in government and everything else, and you can just sit there and be peaceable, that there's something wrong. There's something fundamentally wrong with that. You know, you may have every sense of peace and self-righteousness and clarity, but I can't think of anything more evil. If I was just to sit in this porch, you know, with the meditation and the things I know, I could have full clarity of mind and peace. You know, Maharishi used to float off the ground 3 inches when he'd meditate. He'd meditate for over a month. He had a perfect balance with his physical body and the world around him. He still never, you know, you sit there and yes, you can preach peace and tolerance all you want, but to sit there and watch a group or watch a set of individuals go out, be destroying themselves, even if they think it feels good, and then not get on the front lines and not sit there and say, hey, the way you're living is wrong. You know, sometimes people are just wrong, and that's okay. And you have a right to tell them they're wrong. Say, I respect you. I'm not going to like force you to live my way, but you're wrong. And there's nothing wrong with making laws and moral legislation that stops people from hurting themselves or being able to take that view and hurt others with. And I know there's a great deal of debate there, and I know there's a lot of arguments there, and I understand that, especially in America, we were brought up in democracy with discussion of everything. But there still is, you can't just sit idle when darkness is moving in the world. And if you see that the whole world is falling off into hell, and your option is not to get out in the front lines and just throw your body in front of that and say, guys, wait, I don't care if you're going to listen to me or not. I don't care if people don't want to be saved or not. But I being a good person and not a neutral person, I'm going to try and stop that. So it's very concerning, all these different things that teach neutrality and put personal peace over the world. Now, I'm not going to go chase after people who are throwing themselves in hell. Now, that's a separate thing. But, you know, I definitely am going to sit there and I'm going to fight the good fight. And it's not time to put your sword and shield down yet. I don't believe that. I believe a time will come when there's peace. I don't believe it's here. And I don't believe there will be a time where you have personal clarity and peace and can seek to attain those things. And I don't believe it's now. I believe that there's a balance. I believe we need healthy things in our lives. But, you know, a lot of people don't understand Satan's thing. You know, a brother mentioned Azazel. He's actually one of the 7. Satan's different. Lucifer, which was then named Satan after he spiritually died, but he being an eternal being, he's spiritually dead. So Lucifer's dead. He's dead. That he became Satan in death because he was an eternal being. There's 7 big ones. You know what he really wants for the world? He wants everybody to be peaceable and the world to function fantastic, and he wants all of it to function properly and peaceable with healing and prosperity and light. He just wants God removed from it. And most people don't realize that's his end goal. They think it's to fight against the church. They think it's all these other things. It's not, because that's the ultimate bragging right for him. So you can sit back and say, see, God, look what I did. I have it all functioning properly and you aren't in it. It's the ultimate heart, you know, jab at God's heart. And I don't want to side with that. I don't believe we're supposed to be at peace right now. I believe it is a world at war. I think we should be in spiritual warfare. And I mean, here's the other thing about neutrality. You want to know why it's so peaceable? Because you're no longer a threat to Satan or the darkness. He doesn't have to worry about you anymore. You're neutral. You're not going to do anything. You know, you may teach some peace over people's lives, but here's the thing I also find. When people become incredibly happy and peaceable, they don't feel they need God. They don't feel they need him. Oh, I have everything going smooth. Why do I need what you can give me and what you want to do? It's just some things to think on. I'm not trying to guilt anyone. I'm not trying to make people feel bad. If that may be an outcome of some of the things I said, but I have walked a very long walk, and I know people have been confused by a great many spirits and that have played both sides of the fence and gotten people to believe all kinds of things. And I know Christianity and doctrine is absolutely a nightmare, and I think people take it way too serious. I believe Jesus was God, not man. I believe he had a human body, and I believe we are to do exactly what he says to do. But, you know, you got to make those choices on yourself. When it comes to Jesus, you have to make a choice. But outside of the forgiveness that Jesus supplied, no one's getting to heaven without that. You can try to do it on your own, but you'd have to have never had a sinful thought or a desire or anything once. because once you head down that road, you can head down it again, and God is not going to have another earth happen, and He's not going to have another split down the middle of heaven happen. Be blessed.